So I'm going to quickly break down how we helped Charles from Quad Cabinet Coatings generate over $250,000 in just his first 165 days working with us, and only from $7,890 spent, which was $50 a day, minus a couple of weeks we paused for Christmas, for Thanksgiving, just because he was out of town. So Charles initially came to us on October 3rd, and we had a couple calls with him as he was skeptical. So he'd been burned before in the past, which we'll dive into. So we had two calls, October 3rd and 6th, and after deciding 2 weeks later, he finally moved forward with us. And within just his first 17 days, he did generate over $22,000. So this was our first checking call. When he told us that, he pretty much just broke down, obviously, the fact that he was working with other marketing agencies for over 6 to 8 months, not happy with the results. And he was also relying on Home Advisor and Angie's. And he pretty much just said the main difference is the qualified leads, and they converted way higher, which he had a closing issue. And before, he was just getting tire kickers everywhere else. So pretty much what happened when Charles came in, we broke everything down. So this is zone one, where marketing channels, he had tried 3 marketing agencies and he was relying on Angie and Home Advisor, which was just crap leads. The underlying issue was just tire kickers, no qualification. And he was driving 40 minutes to a quote, and within the first 30 seconds or a couple of minutes of that appointment, he just knew there was no hope in hell he was going to close it. And he was just wasting his day, wasting his time, gas, money. It all adds up. And the result, he was stuck at $20,000 a month. He couldn't hire due just to unpredictable demand and poor leads. His close rate was like 10 to 20%. And that's when we implemented our scale predictably system. Now, this was one of our catch up calls with Charles back in February, it was. So Charles, he's pretty much already booked 6 weeks in advance, and just from $50 a day, it's done all of that. Now he's already hiring. He's already hired 2 estimators and is now hiring to get himself out in front of all the business. And hell, he's tripled his business even in December, which is for all these home service based businesses. It's always the hardest time, which is incredible to see. So the main things we actually fixed when Charles came on board was the volume, but the quality as well, as that's like a big thing. Volume does not matter if there's no quality there. And next was obviously predictability. So with the volume, we cut off third-party vendors. Charles has tripled his business while spending less, which is crazy because he was just wasting money on this. What we've done is built video ads, and that's essentially built trust, as what we do is explain the service. So when a homeowner comes in, they're already educated and now they just want next steps. And that is why we have such a high lead to estimate booking ratio. And we always make sure we can build the best possible offer that we can, and we never run discount ads, which is such a big thing. That is just one trap to the bottom. The quality, so all leads have to come through a 4-step qualification survey. Our reps, manual US-based calling team, not AI, they call within 5 minutes and then also confirm 24 hours before the appointment. Now, predictability. Charles now has a full front-end system to handle everything. The only thing we ask from him and his estimators now is to show up, close a job, and fulfill. That simple. So we take care of everything from generating and qualifying the lead, nurturing and follow up. They just need to show and close. That's all we ask. And that's actually helped Charles pretty much close at 40%, which is crazy. And since working with us, so we launched on October 26th. His first estimate was the 30th. We've had 169 estimates in 165 days. Now, I think we could probably take away 3 weeks. So that's, around 140 days from we paused during holidays. 169 estimates in 140 days, an average of $46.69 cost per estimate. And with only $7,890 spent, he's had over $250,000 in closed deals. Now, one thing I want to touch base on is the creatives we run. So we do a lot of AI generated content, which I'll touch base in a second. And we run many different ads with different visuals, different hooks, different pain points, and different reasons to buy, as we need this creative variation in order to have a successful campaign. And that is one of the biggest issue with a lot of either companies running it themselves, or they have a franchise that their franchise recommends this marketing company and just marketing agencies in general. they run one or two images or discount ads, and it never goes well. So we're going to touch base on the Meta Andromeda update, which due to AI content, which people like myself, my team, we leverage a lot, as we don't need to tell you to record content, tell you messed up, and now it's a 2-week turnaround time. We can produce content at such a high rate that is hyper realistic that because of that, and many other people doing it as well in different industries, Meta had to completely change their entire algorithm to keep up with all this content because it's just so fast now. And because of that, that's where you have to have all these different pain points. So we run ads with different pain points. It could be bad prep, rush job, overpriced contractors for poor work. Maybe they're subcontracting and not licensed. You don't know what's happening. Or it could be impact of early damage. It could be higher bills due to not fixing it. So different pain points, different reasons to buy. Then different visuals. So is it a selfie? Is someone recording you? That's a different visual. It could be gender demographic, age demographic, the visuals and the scene. Are you inside a house, outside a house, at the office, in your home? There's so many different things, just on the street, in the van, different audience stages. So overall, you have ready now buyers. They're interested but not fully decided, and the cold audience. And that all leads with a good variation, good ads, good copy, good landing page, a successful campaign. So with the 5 stages of customer awareness, you have the 5 stages. Everyone should know this. Stage 1, unaware. So you're going to call out the homeowner with a problem that they don't even know that they have. Now that is stage 1. Stage 2 is problem aware. So all you're doing is agitating the pain. Stage 3, solution aware. So you want to educate and reframe and position your service. So for Charles, is his service as the smartest or the best option. Stage 4 is product aware, which makes your company, the obvious choice. You don't rush to prep, you don't subcontract everyone's license, you use the best materials, that you're not using the poor materials. And then stage 5 is most aware, where this would just be an ad of just a direct offer and urgency. Like, it's very simple. You just call it out. It's like a 10-15 second video maximum. And what you do, you put all these different stages in one campaign. As what Facebook's going to do is they can go in between them all and address all these different markets, which allows you to hit different pools of people. Because the whole point is, very specific things are only going to branch into one sub pocket of people. That's why you have to have the variation, as you're going to reach all the different people. You could run 20 ads. If you only change a hook, you're only going to reach that one small pocket of people. And that's the biggest mistake people make. And that's why their campaigns, do well for a couple of days, maybe a week, and then it flops completely because you've already rinsed it. Now, this is Charles' latest campaign. So we launched this last campaign back in the start of February. And so far, we've had a $13 cost per website lead, not Metaform, as it's cheap leads. And he's had 66 estimates booked at a $42.36 cost per estimate. So, he's booking more than one a day, which is amazing. And then what we do is the qualification. So everyone comes through a funnel, through a survey. Now, this will be based on, say, this is what Charles wanted. If you were to say, come work with us, for example, it'd be based on what you would want. I can't tell you what's qualified. Qualified is what means to your company. So, by the way, if you do want to book a call, I'll leave it in the description. So the first stage is obviously project scope. The next one gets into the actual, the scope of the project. How many, what's the size of it? So how many doors, if it's windows, how many windows, etc., etc. Stage 3 is intent, timeline. And then this one, just name, phone number, email. I never do address until the calendar, as that's the next stage, because I'm not going to create unnecessary friction. As worst case, I'd rather get this person's information so our reps can call them up and then book them in. Because regardless, they're going to have to put in their address again, which doesn't make sense, have that happen twice. Then, as you can see with our reps, so this lead had come in, I think it was on the 30th or the 31st. It took our rep 3 days in a row, as we have a 5-day follow-up system with calling. It took the 3rd day to actually book them in. And then what they did is they moved it to scheduled and called, which we're going to touch base on just here. So we run prospect scheduled and called, because what we have our reps do, if anyone's in here, they need to kick them out immediately, which means they've called them, they've got the details. Now, if it's scheduled and called, great, leads qualified, we go ahead, or they'll move them to disqualified. So the way we have it is after layer 1, they go through SMS and email sequence for nurture and follow-up. We remind the leads of their appointments, and we touch initial base. Then our in-house calling team calls them 5 minutes. They follow up for a week if they don't book, and then calls all self-bookings and books anyone who doesn't initially book. And then we send all the scope to our client so they're fully informed before they go. Now, like I say, qualified is what you say is qualified. Your pricing, your financing options, your minimum average job size requirements, location, what you offer and what you don't, and just any other questions that you need to answer before you go out. And then on top of that, Charles, if that image loads, You also get a dedicated support rep, so that's our check-in calls. We have bi-weekly check-in calls. You get an email and a text. You get an email and a phone number. You can call or text at any time, so you always know what's happening and why it's happening, okay, and when it's happening. And just to touch base, I'll just quickly show you Charles' ad account just before we finish. I'll refresh it just so you know I'm not lying. I'm not manipulating with the stats. This is just the last 13 days. If we go into the performance, we go custom, so I can see the appointments. 111 leads at a $14 cost per lead. And overall appointments has been, let's find this out, $45 cost per appointment, 36 appointments in the last 30 days. Now on a maximum time frame, this didn't sync up here, but we had a great cost per lead there. And as you can see, overall, very successful campaign. So if you do want the same system for Charles, we have clients in many industries, painting and windows especially. What to do? Go into the link in the description, book a call, and any questions you need, I'll also leave the Instagram if you want to reach us there first. It's just Scale Prediction on Instagram. And that is exactly how Charles made $250,000 from just spending $7,890.